Go ahead.
So, good night, good night, good night, everyone. Welcome to Dare to Tell. This is a platform where you can come and tell your story, whether it is a successful story, your struggles, whatever it is that you're going through, your life experiences, no matter what it is. Let this be the platform where you can come and talk about it. So, let's talk. And tonight I have with my name is Donna, by the way. Sorry about that. My name is Donna. I'm the host of Dare to Tell. And I have with me tonight a wonderful man. His name is Kirk Watson. And tonight we're going to discuss um, a little bit about his life before he became a minister. He is a minister of the gospel, and we give God praise for that. And so tonight, Kirk, welcome, welcome to Dear to Tell. And just tell us a little bit about yourself before, who you are and stuff like that before we go into the details.
Well, I just want to say thank you for having me on for Dare to Talk, and I love to talk, so this is a great platform to talk. But who am I? Yes, I'm Kirk. I was born and raised in Kingston, Jamaica. Came to Canada at the age of 14 with four of my siblings. You know, um, was a married man. I have five children. And have my own, operate my own business. And yes, life take a toll. And you know what? I give God thanks for that past life because of that past life, I get to find out who the true me is.
Yes, that's what I always say, that your past sometimes can propel you to um, become a better person sometimes in life, once you learn from your lessons. And we all have a past. We all have past. It doesn't matter how huge, how big, how deep, how whatever it is. We all have a past. It's just that some of us choose not to talk about it. Some of us suffer in silence because we don't want to talk about it because of shame, ridicule, you name it. And I think to free yourself, to free your mind, the best thing to do is to talk about it, because that's when you know that you have overcome, because you feel free to talk about it. So I want to talk to you about who you were before you came a minister of the gospel, the things that you went through, and all of that.
Who I were? Oh wow, that's a great question.
Who you were,
You know,
because
you're
we were
thinking,
somebody before. We did all kinds of stuff before we became this new person in Christ, you
right.
know?
Well,
Yeah.
who I was before, my before I came to Canada, I'm going to go back from Jamaica days.
Mhm.
So, before I came to Canada, while in Jamaica, my mom left us when I was actually, I think, if I'm correct, I think I was 9 years old when my mother left us. There was seven of us when she left us, and I was nine. I'm the second one after seven. So she left us when I was nine. And throughout between nine and the age of 14, as a young man back home in Jamaica, you know, the hero that I come from, it's a hero they call Rockford, otherwise known as Warwick Hill.
I know that
And
area.
they they say that it's a bad area, but to me, it's a good area because that's where I grew up, that's where I lived.
Right.
But there was a lot of wanted man that lives in the hills and stuff like that. And as a young man, I was very intrigued with their lifestyle, and I used to go buy them cigarette and get food for them and all of that stuff and take it to them when they need it. This is during the daytime when they can't come out, because they were always hiding. So that's what I used to do as a little young lad growing up, until I start to get more deeper and deeper involved in those kind of that lifestyle. And, my mother heard what I was doing back home. I was hanging around with these guys, these wanted
Mhm.
men and stuff. And, that end up led me to a couple shootout in Jamaica where I almost died, I think two times in Jamaica, been shootout with police and the wanted man,
Mhm.
and my mother heard what was happening and she decided that, she better get me out of there. So she sent for me and and four of my other siblings. And, I came to Canada I think I came here when I was 14 years old.
Wow.
So, come here and then I start going to school, you know, start school and start working part-time. And, a couple of my friends from back home migrated to Canada and we got hooked up and we started to go to party and, then we started to smoke weed. Well, I was used to smoke weed while I was back home because I
Right.
started actually smoking weed when I was 9 years old. My stepdad
Wow.
used to grow weed and the tree used to be taller than myself.
Oh my God.
And they usually smoke the chalice, the pipe. And that's how I started smoking the weed, by
Yeah.
smoking the pipe. And so when I came here to Canada, I started to hang out with my friends that came from Jamaica. And we started to go to party and smoke weed. And, then we started to sell the weed and they would say, hey, you know what? The money was good. So we started to buy more weed and sell it in the pound and all of that stuff until we moved from weed to start to sell crack cocaine. And then we moved from crack cocaine until we start to sell the cocaine by the kilo. And that's where the lifestyle becomes more at a high level where now we buy guns and, arm ourselves. And, and there was a time when we went to buy some drugs and we give some guy the money and he decided that he's gonna take the money away from us. And lo and behold, we start to look for this guy for our money and we couldn't find him. So we decided that, he robbed us. Now we're going to start to rob the
Other people.
so-called drugs guys. And, we went to rob some drugs guy and they were planning to rob us and we were planning to rob them.
Oh my
So,
goodness.
so that was one of those story. And, because of what transpired, we go there with guns. They already have their guns.
Yeah.
And bam, a shootout start. And two-person got shot there. One died in the scene. One of my friend got shot and we had to take him to the hospital. And that's how I end up incarcerated. Actually, after the shooting, I actually left Canada and I went to the United States. So I was in the States for about a year, and that's where I got arrested, and I was sent back to Canada to face the murder charge. And
Oh, you were extradited. So, well, you're being real. So did you end up shooting anyone, or was there nobody? Well, you were charged. Were any
well,
of your
I was charged with the murder, but I was not the actual trigger person.
shooter?
But
Okay.
regardless of who is the shooter,
Right, right.
once you're there, you are a part of it. And
Absolutely.
so
Were the other guys also arrested? Your other friends?
well, the one that got shot, he was arrested in the hospital. So they arrested him in the hospital, and he was actually charged and tried like the day when I get arrested in the States, that's the day when his trial was finished. And he got life 10 in prison. And then the other guy, he wasn't apprehended till like 19 years after.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, so after 19 years after, that's when he got arrested. That's when the first guy that he already did his time and got deported back home. Then I was incarcerated doing my time because I was found guilty on a lesser charge of murder. I was found guilty on manslaughter and was given 12 years. So
So
while I
what
was
year was that again that you were arrested? What year?
1990,
In the 90s.
93, yeah,
Oh, wow.
yeah.
Okay. So you got 12 years. How much time did you serve for out of the 12?
7 years.
Wow. So how was that journey? How was that experience? Like seriously.
Well, it was how should I say it? It was at first it was one of those frightening experience, but in the midst of 1992, so the shooting happened in 91. I was arrested in 92, and I was found guilty in 93.
Mhm.
But between 92, when I got arrested, and 93, that's when I found Christ inside the prison. So between the time when I arrested and before I met Christ, it was a struggle. But
Mhm.
after I met Christ when I was incarcerated, it's like, I realized that I can't do nothing about it. So I just give everything over to God. And, he was the one that helped me to navigate through the time that I was there waiting for a new trial.
Mm. So how did your kids cope with all this, knowing that their dad, was in prison?
Well, my first son was my first son at the time, he was 5.
Mhm.
The second one was 3. And the third one, the third one was in the mother's womb.
Okay, so they basically were really
Yeah, they
young,
were, yeah,
not
they were very young.
understanding.
Yeah, they
Okay.
were very young child. So
Yeah.
when I got out, they were actually still young, and
Yeah.
they believed that I was actually away at some camp, you
Yeah.
know. Yeah, so
So now you are in prison and you got saved. Continue.
so when I got saved in September of 1992, and then I was found guilty in 93 and given the 12-year sentence. And so while I was incarcerated, from the East Detention to the federal institution in Kingston, I was just serving God and doing whatever someone that give their life over to God, which is now spend time reading my Bible and going to the chapel while I was there. But the greatest thing while I was incarcerated is that God was using me on the inside to tell other inmates about Him.
Mhm.
And that's the beauty about that side of the whole story, because but then it's like it was not me no more inside the prison. It was like God working in and through me,
Mhm.
and a lot of other inmate lives got saved because I was incarcerated.
That's amazing because that's what it's supposed to be about, actually. That when you get saved, you're supposed to impact other people's lives.
Right.
So while you were in prison, even though you were serving the Lord and all of that, so did you ever get in any kind of confrontation, any fights, any whatever in there? Because no matter how Christian you are, there are people there that pick fights and try to do
Well,
all that stuff.
something I got in one, two, I think three fights I got into while I was there. So
Mhm.
the first one that I got into was one day we were going to court, and this guy wanted to take my sandwich away from me. That's how bad it is. So he wanted to take my sandwich away. So I told him, no, he's not going to have my sandwich. So he's going to have to kill me. So we end up having a scrap just before we go to court. So, I got a few punches and he got a few punches, and that was the end of it. But then the other one now that I got in, it was something that was unexpected. I was using the phone, and this Indian guy, like there is time when each inmate has a specific time when they use the phone. So I
Mhm.
normally use it from 6 to 6:30 and then give it to someone else. And the person who's supposed to use it after me, he didn't want to use the phone at that moment. So he has 20 minutes, whatever he wants. If he wants to leave the phone for that 20 minutes, then no, but that's his time.
Mhm.
So there was this native Indian guy that saw what happened, and he didn't like what happened, and he came over and he sucker punched me. And when he sucker punched me, everybody was looking now to see a big scrap.
Mhm.
And by then, you know what? I'm getting to start to understand the word of God and
Mhm.
how to be forgiven, and you know
Turn the other cheek, so to speak.
exactly. So, and that's what I actually did. And I put my arms around him and I hugged him and I walked him in the corner and I said, I don't know why you did that, but I forgive you.
Yeah.
And
Wow.
that big man, he was actually older than me and more trapped in, and he starts to cry. What I mean cry, like a
I'm
little baby.
sure.
You know, he was bawling, bawling, bawling as if I was beating him, you know, and I says,
You
wow.
were actually with how your change, everything that changed about you, because I'm thinking that when you're in prison, normally the reaction that he thought he was going to get from you wasn't what he expected. So you actually beat him with forgiveness
There you go. Yeah. Yeah, that's true.
and
That's true.
love, you
And
know?
love, you know. And I'll be honest that the next morning, right after the cell door were open, I hear someone was knocking on my door, and I go, "Who's that?" And he said, like he called me and he says, "Okay, coming in." Like I thought he's coming in to fight now, you know. But he came in and he says, "Can you teach me how to pray?"
Oh my God.
You know, and when he says that, I go, "Oh," like I didn't even know what to say to him. You know, more and said, "Okay, let's pray." You
Yeah.
know, and we prayed together, and I end up leading into God, you know. And
Awesome.
and that's the beauty about understanding the love of God. When you show someone love, that's how you win them over to Christ.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, and all of that. Now this happened while I was in the East Detention. So
Mhm.
now when I was convicted and was given my sentence, now I'm going to the big league.
Right.
So this is the penitentiary.
Where
You know,
murderers and all kinds of stuff. Yep.
exactly. And in the penitentiary, there's no fist fight. It's shank,
Weapons.
knife and all
Homemade.
of that
Yeah.
stuff.
Homemade
So that's a
weapons.
different kind of fight that you're in.
Yeah.
This is a weapon fight. It's no fist in the bucket, in the detention, it's fist fight because you don't have any weapon or anything.
Yeah.
But when you get into the federal institution, you can have knives and make your own
Hmm.
shank and all of that stuff. And thank God that I did end up in a fight, but there was no the
Weapons.
person who had the shank because of who I was, and some of
Mhm.
the guys that was there actually knew me. So because they knew me, they actually stood up for me.
Yeah.
And that's how I didn't end up actually getting into a literal fight with the person.
Yeah.
And so ever since then, the other guys have known, okay, they start to understand who I was. So because of the guys that was there that knows me from the street,
Hmm.
they were
Yeah.
like my bodyguard.
Yeah.
you
Big
know,
man Kirk is in here. You know what he's in here for? Yeah.
exactly. So
Murder. Don't mess with him. Yeah.
yeah. So because of that, now I start to live a different life, but they start to recognize that I'm not the same person.
Yeah.
So now they're giving me a more higher respect, knowing that who I was, I'm not that person anymore. So now they start to call me the preacher man.
Wow.
So
And rightly so.
yeah, so because of that, God's been very good while I was incarcerated,
Yeah.
that he was able to use me to touch other inmates' life,
Mhm.
and I filed for an appeal because at this time my lawyer says I shouldn't have been convicted of the charge,
Mhm.
because of how there was not much evidence for them to convict me. But
Mhm.
because that first guy got convicted, they used
Yeah.
some of the stuff from his trial to convict me.
Mhm.
So I appealed it and I won the appeal. And when it went to, they ordered me a new trial. At the new trial, they decided that they're going to withdraw the charges on the condition that they're going to allege with immigration, that immigration will send me back home to Jamaica. So they were going to deport me back to Jamaica. So they make the deal with immigration that they will classify me as a danger to the public. And once you're classified as a danger to the public, that's an automatical deportation order.
Deportation. Yeah.
So everything was already set. The date was set. I was supposed to leave on a Friday to go back home like 2 weeks after they classified me as a danger to the public.
So
And then
by this time, how much time did you already do?
by this time I did around 6 years.
Oh,
Yeah, about 6 years I did. So once they withdraw the charges, now I was in immigration court, but I was still incarcerated at the
right.
Don jail because they sent me back from the penitentiary back to Toronto, and I was in the Don jail for about a year waiting
Hmm.
for the immigration hearing.
Hmm.
And so at the immigration hearing, by this time, um, I start to make connection with a lot of well-known people because they heard about me, what I was doing inside the prison. I had a connection with the chief of Markham's son and a pastor friend and an ex-police officer. And because of the pastor friend, he knows all of these guys. So they came in to visit me one time and they heard about what I was doing. And, so they came at my immigration hearing as a witness. So they went, the judge asked them, what do they have to say? So they both all of them take the stand. And, they just says they believe in me and they see a change in me. And so the judge take what they said in consideration. And then he asked me, what do he wants to hear from me? So, when he asked me what he wants, I said, you know what, Your Honor, I truly believe that whatever you're going to do, it's all because of God. God has placed you there to do your job, and I know that you're going to do what you see that's right. And, I will accept anything that you do. And that was my honest answer to him. And he says, okay, you know what, I'm going to take a break. And then he comes back. So he take about 15 minutes break, then he comes back and he says, okay, you know what, Mr. Watson, I stood up and, he started to speak about some stuff and what he's going to do. And then he says, the good thing about you is that I was reading your institution record. I didn't know that there's a record while you're institution. That's when at my immigration.
Me either.
So, because once you're incarcerated, everything that you do, the officer, they write it down. So
everything that happens inside the prison.
Exactly. Wow. They write it down and they use that against you at your parole hearing, any kind of hearing that you have inside, they would use that against you. If you're good, it will show up. If you're bad, it will show up. Wow. And thank God that mine was all good.
Excellent.
So because of that, he says, the most important thing that he saw in my file is one of my PO officer. My PO officer wrote in my file, I didn't know this until my immigration, that how I impacted his life. Now, this is my PO officer wrote that.
Listen. This is like, seriously, like, I tell you, God is just amazing. Continue. Sorry, I'm just baffled.
Yeah, so because of that information, and then he read, everything that was written. He says you have never get into any. He said he saw where there was a confrontation, but the confrontation you didn't start it. But he says it was written that the other guys was taken up for you. And then he says, why is that? They said, because I don't know. So he said, well, you know what I'm going to do? Based upon what I see on your record and how you have impacted the other inmates in a positive way, what I'm going to do, I'm going to overturn your deportation order.
My God.
I'm going to stay it for 4 years. If you stay out of trouble for 4 years, then it will wipe clean. But if you get into any trouble within that 4 years, you're going back home. And I says, thank you, Your Honor. And that was in March of 1993.
Hold on right there. You were talking about your PO officer, what he said. And you know what I thought about when Joseph was in prison? And oh my God. Oh, Jesus, I thank you. When Joseph was in prison and all those connections that he made, and they could go to Pharaoh and say, well, this man is an interpreter of dreams and whatever the case may be. So, it just kind of came to my spirit. And Brother Kirk, I don't know. Like, look what the Lord did. Like, seriously, the judge overturned your deportation.
Yes.
Who say God is not real?
Amen. And I'll be honest with you, that's everything else that transpired in my life while I was there, that's the thing that solidified my personal relationship with God.
Absolutely.
Because the ticket, everything was booked and ready for me to go. My flight, everything was ready.
You see,
and when that happened, I said that could nothing be but God.
Can I tell you, when that judge said he's taking a break. God just start deal with him,
Right there,
Straight from his heart. When he
the
took that
same,
break, that
same
was
minute,
God speaking to him wherever he
same,
was.
same time. As soon as he's taking that break, God was at work.
Yes.
Yeah, God was at work, you know. Yeah,
Mm.
you know, when he says that, he says, okay, you know what, Mr. Watson, this is what's going to happen. We're going to sign the document and they're going to send me back to the institution. And then the institution will do their paperwork and then they will release me. So they didn't release me the same day. So now I start to get worried that there's something came up that they didn't want to release me. So,
God wanted
so,
you to touch more lives before you left.
so about, no, this was a Friday. No, the Wednesday. So the Thursday, now about 10:30 in the morning, 10:30, 11, they call me and says, pack your stuff. I go, where am I going? They said, we don't know. No, they were playing. Now these are the guys playing with me because they sent me. So they took me downstairs to A&D and pack up all my stuff and okay, let's go here. So when they just walked me right outside the door and then they give me a quarter. Open the door and says, you can go. So here am I outside the down jail, looking around, just came up, don't know where, don't even know where, I didn't even know where the down jail was, be honest with you, you know? But then I'm looking around and I says, oh my God, like, okay, what am I going to do? So I have this one quarter. And I remember just before I leave the federal institution, there was a fellow who he is my mentor. He came in the day before I got transferred. And he came in, he was a pastor then, and he came in to preach to the inmate. And while he was preaching to the inmate, then he started to tell his personal story. So he started to let us know that he has never been in trouble before. He has never been handcuffed. He doesn't know anything bad about the law, but all he knows is about the word. So one of the inmates asked him, so how can you relate to us and you never get into any kind of trouble? So as he was answering, as he was about to answer that question, it's like God spoke there directly to me and says, you're coming back to answer that question.
Ooh.
And I'm looking around, I hear the voice, and I'm looking around and it's like I was so astonished because I didn't know nothing about God's voice or anything like that. All I hear, you're coming back to answer that question. Didn't know what it was about. And 3 months to the day after I got released, I was back in the same institution, in the same room as a volunteer. Now, this person, the pastor guy, before he went in, it took him 6 months before they cleared him to go in. A man that has never been into trouble, it took him 6 months before they allowed him to get in. Me, who just came out, it took me 3 months for them to send me back in as a volunteer. So that could, when I look at all of that, I says, that is just all God.
Yes.
And when I went back in as a volunteer, in the same room, some of the same inmate was there. Actually, the one that asked the question, he was there. And when they saw me, because everybody wear their street clothes, and I was in my street clothes, so they thought I came back in and I reoffended.
Yeah.
So they asked, so what are you back for? And I go, I came to answer the question. And they look at them and they say, what are you talking about? You came to answer the question. And I said, you remember the question that you were asking the pastor guide? And I go, yeah. So, okay. So you're going to ask me that question and I'm going to answer it for you. And I said, what are you talking about? He says, I'm a volunteer. I didn't came in on any charge. I came in as a volunteer to let you guys know that I sat where you sat. And the same God that did it for me can do it for you. And that place becomes so silent.
Ooh.
They were so astonished that they could not believe it when they heard that I'm a volunteer and I will be leaving right after I answer the question. You know, it was, and all of them was so blown away. I literally captivate them, and they were so receptive. They says, "Oh my God, how did this happen?" And I says, "You know what? I don't know, but if you just put your life in God's hand, He's the one that does it. I don't know how He did it behind the scene. All I do is I put my trust in Him." And I says, "It doesn't matter what charge you are. It doesn't matter how many time you're doing. God can turn things around."
Yeah.
And that same gentleman that came in to preach, because of him, his teaching, because before I got released, he used to come in the down jail and sat with me 2 to 3 times a week just to teach me the word. Teach me the word, teach me the word. But
Wow.
when I got released and I got the quarter and they put me out through the door, he was the person that I called.
That was what the quarter was for.
That was what the quarter was for. So I called him and I didn't get him. I get his wife. And his wife says, "Well, you know what? He's not home. He was doing a seminar." And so she said, "Okay, she's going to try to call him and let him know." I says, she told me to call back. I says, "I can't. I only have 1 quarter." You know, so she says, "Just tell him I'm at the jail where he comes to visit me outside waiting." So I sat there on the step for about 45 minutes, an hour. And then he pulled up. And when he pulled up, I run off of that step and I jump in the van. I says, "Let's go." You know?
Freedom, here I come, freedom.
So,
Oh my
so he
God.
says, "How did you get out?" I go, "They just tell me to go."
But Brother Kirk, how was that? Like, I mean, I don't, well, only you can explain that moment, that feeling you had when you know that, okay, I'm going home. And even if it took 3 hours for you to sit outside, you were going to sit outside, but you know that you're not, like, how did that feel?
Well, you know, it was a great feeling. It was a great unexpected feeling. Let's put it that way. Because just looking back at it, it's like, okay, I should have still be in. But because of the grace of God, God decided that my life being behind is not going to do much benefit. I've done the work that I needed to done on the inside. Now it's time for me to come out.
And
So I
we don't
can.
understand. Sometimes God puts us in a situation to do a particular thing for an assignment, for a season. It might look rough to us because it's a jail thing and we did what we did, but that wasn't the purpose to punish you, but it's for you to touch lives in there. And
True.
God knew that the only way He could do it was get you in there,
Amen.
no
Yeah.
matter how, no matter which way, but He did it. And just the fact that you did that, oh my God. And the judge, listen, I can't get over that that says I'm gonna take a break, because I could just sit and imagine God just working on him, just touching his heart. You know, like how God touched Pharaoh's heart.
Yes, yes.
Like I'm saying, Jesus, like only God, only God, only
Only
God.
God. Only God. You know, I'll be honest, it was a journey. In my time inside, it was a journey. I may remember when I just came back from the federal institution and they brought me to the Don jail. When they set the new trial, it was about 6 months away. And normally they don't keep, if you're a federal inmate, they don't keep you in the detention center for those long period of time. So they send me to Niagara Falls Detention Center.
Ooh.
Now in Niagara Falls Detention Center, it's all bikers, the bikers gang.
Oh,
You know,
were you a little bit intimidated?
oh man. It's like when I was going, when I got there, I felt empty. But before I go, like God told me that I was going on a vocation and on an assignment.
Wow.
I didn't know what God just messed up my whole entire life while I was in it. He just says, "You're going," says, "How can I go on a vocation and I'm inside?" Says, "Don't worry, you'll enjoy it." So when I got there and I said, God, you told me I'm going to enjoy it. When I looked, there's all these big white guys with tattoos all over them. And I said, oh my God. And the guard says, you're going inside there. I go, oh. No, I'm coming from the penitentiary federal institution. So I'm supposed to be a tough guy.
Yeah.
But when I'm seeing these big redneck guys, I says, oh my God. I said, don't worry, you'll be okay. So they says, okay, you're gonna go into cell number 18. Now there was one black guy on the unit, but he was in the cell. So they says, you're gonna go into cell number 18. I said, okay, can I go in now? They says, no problem, you can go in. So when they opened the cell and I walked in, he was in the cell on his bed, and I go, okay. So as I looked at him, God says, that's the assignment.
Ooh.
And as God says it to me, that's how I said it to him. I says, God sent me here an assignment for you. I don't know what it is, but that's what God just said me. I'm on assignment to you. And I start to speak to him and start to tell him some stuff. And this guy starts to get so intimidated because of what I was telling. I was telling him his life story, what was transpiring, and he got so fearful and afraid that he starts to be fearful of me. And I says, what's happening? I says, it's like he says, I can't believe what you're saying, because everything that you're saying is all true. And I says, well, then I stop, and God says, just share with him why you're there, where you're coming from. And I shared with him my story and tell him, no, I'm coming from the penitentiary, and this was my charge and all of that stuff. And when I was leaving, God told me I was coming on an assignment. I didn't know what the assignment was. But when I got here and I saw you, he told me you are the assignment. And he said to tell you that everything is going to be okay. You need to put your trust in him. And that was the assignment. And I was there, and they sent me back. I took his information and all of that stuff. Actually, at one point I went down, we both went to visit at the same time. I get to meet his child's mother. And so I, came back to Toronto after 5 months. And, then they did what they have to do and let me out. And when they let me out, I end up contacting his child's mother and, communicate with him. Yeah. But when they let me out from the Don jail, there was this one individual. When I went back there, he was still there. He was there when they brought me from the penitentiary. And when they shipped me out and bring me back, he was still there. And while I was there, I've never seen him go to visit. No one comes to visit him. It's as if he had nobody. And so when I got out, I didn't tell him what I was going to do. So I got out the Thursday. I went back on the Friday. I bought a change of clothes. I bought a suit. Actually, I went to, there was what they call it, international men's clothes that was on Dufferin. I think it was on Finch and Dufferin, somewhere there. I went there and I bought a suit for him. And I took it there and I called him down for a visit. And when he came down, he was so frightened because he thought it was the immigration coming for him to send him back home.
Oh, he was not a citizen.
No. So he was waiting to go back home. And when he saw me, he broke down into tears. And I said, you know what? I've been watching you and I noticed no one come to visit you. Wow. And I just came to bring a suit for you. And when he saw the suit, and he just broke down in tears. I says, oh my God, you don't know what you just did for me.
Because obviously nobody cared before you came,
Exactly, yeah.
Wow.
And that touches heart. I don't know where he is today. All I did, I just do what God told me to do, and I left it. Because how I become safe, that's exactly what happened. I went, I was in the East Detention. Some volunteer came in as one came in, and he was just talking about this man called Jesus, how he can save you from all your troubles. And I says, he can save you from all your troubles? He goes, yeah. He says, well, I'm gonna have to try this, man, because if this trouble that I'm going through right now is, I need somebody to save me from
And
it.
you're in there, it won't hurt to try.
There, and that's exactly what I did. Nobody forced me. He just says, that's between you and God. You just repeat this prayer and believe in your heart, and God will do the rest. And I did exactly, and the moment I did that, I know there was a transformation because my heart is like on the inside of me, there was like this fire. And all of a sudden, like when the service was finished, they normally took the inmate back first, then the volunteers. So while they were escorting the inmate back, I'm walking and I'm watching the inmate walking, but I am actually in the here walking. And they're on the ground walking, and I'm looking down on them walking, and I says, it's like I'm literally saying, like, what the hell is going on? And then when I get back to the unit, I was so shocked. When the volunteer was passing, now I told the guy, can I spoke to him for a minute? And he says, yeah, go ahead. And I said, I need to see you. Can you set an appointment to come and see me one-on-one? So he set the appointment, and he came the following Wednesday. And when he came, I was explaining to him how I felt and what happened after I said the prayer. So now we start to explain the conversion side, the new birth, and all of that stuff. And the Spirit of God was on the inside working on you, and from that day, I start to read from Genesis. I think I read the entire Bible about 3 times since I'm incarcerated. From Genesis to Revelation, I just read it like a book. And it was through reading that book, the Bible, I learned how to read and write.
Wow.
By just reading the Bible, I learned how to read and write. And I end up getting my high school diploma while I was incarcerated.
That's amazing. And you see, one of the amazing things that I like about your story is that what a lot of people need to understand is that your life is what people see. You can say a lot of words, but it's what you do that really impacts somebody else's life, because somebody can be hungry and you say, oh, believe in God, read the word, whatever. But if you can feed that person, that's how you impact their lives, because you fed them. You literally, like when Jesus fed the 5,000 with the loaves and the fishes, so it's really doing. It's not just speaking and beating people with the word and all of that. It's good, but at the same time, you have to do the action. So let me ask you something, Minister Kirk. So while you were incarcerated and stuff, where was your mom at this time?
Well, my mom she was here living in Canada.
How did she manage to know my baby, my son?
Well, you know what?
But she took you from Jamaica because you were going down the wrong path, and
Yeah,
you came here and you ended up still on the wrong side of the track. So, how did she deal with that?
you know, um, prior before that lengthy sentence, I did 8 months prior before that. I sold an undercover cop some drugs. So I did 8 months. I did 8 months in the West Detention when they had it. And my dad was a sergeant in the army back home in Jamaica, and then he migrated to the States, and then he
You're
went to
who?
my dad.
Bad boy. If his dad was a bad boy, if dad was a sergeant. Oh my God.
Yeah, yeah. So when he came, actually before I actually migrated from Jamaica, I never known him. I met him, I saw him when I was about 6.
Oh, okay.
And this is when me and my little friends was running around, naked, barefoot, no shirt, all of that stuff in Jamaica. So, it was him and about 5 other soldier guy came in a Jeep. And he started to yell at us and say, boy, you go washing the dirty foot. So me, because we're all those bad little Jamaican kids. And we always heard that soldier man in the army, they're batty man. So we start to cuss him and say, "We're not batty man and a sex batty in the camp and have no woman up there." And we all run. So when I went back home, my mother was telling me, "That's your dad." And I said, "My dad? Who's my dad?" "No, my dad is inside. This was my stepdad now. He's the one that I said is my dad because he's the one that I know. I never met this man before. That was the first time I ever seen him when he was, came up as a soldier. And then when we migrate to Canada now, that's when now I leave from here, went to the States and spent some time with him and then came back over. And that's when I end up into doing the 8 months. And he came over here and he started with that sergeant trip, and I had to tell him off and tell him don't come back, But my mother, from that 8 months that I did, when I get the longer stretch now, it was very hurtful to her, and it kind of shook her apart. But when I give my life over to God, it's like everything changes.
The relationship changed. So
Yeah.
you
So
guys
now I'm on the inside counseling, them on the outside.
Wow.
And even when I got the judge, when I was found guilty, it's like my whole family that was there. My kid's mother was there, some of my brothers was there, my auntie was there. And when they found me guilty, it's like everybody starts to cry. I'm the only one that's not crying. And, I told him it's okay. I will be okay. I will be fine. I am okay, and that's what I told them. Don't worry about me. I'll be okay, because I know I was okay, because my life was in God's hand. And, I start to counsel them from the inside, outside, and that was how God was working things out to let them know that, what, I'm fine,
and this is how I truly believe in transformation, because from you were a child, a youth coming up, all of that, what you did and went through, every step was ordained. God knew what he was doing, even though he uses the foolish things to confound the wise. And every step that you took from childhood coming up to this point was for you to go save those souls that were in prison.
Amen. Yeah.
And we people, some of us that don't understand would say, "Oh my God, really?" But if you only knew the things that God will allow to happen in your life for you to touch another person's life, you can't even fathom it, So it's yeah. So now, after prison life, what happened? While you're out and you're free?
Yeah, so you know what, I got out in what, 90, I think it was March 1997. Yeah, I think it was March 1997 I got out, So when I got out, and I start to, well, when I got out, I planned to reunite back with my kid's mother. Because before I actually got out, I got married while I was inside the institution, because the lawyer said it will be good to kind of slow down the process of them trying to sending me back home.
Because now you have a child and a wife.
Exactly,
children,
Yeah, so they said it will slow it down. So when I got out, I was planning to, reunite back with her and start a new life over. But she didn't like the person that she is seeing at the moment. She was looking for the person that went in. So she was looking for this gangster person who will, know that everything will be okay. That's the type of person that she was looking for. But when she wasn't seeing that, she was actually seeing someone, and which I understand, because I actually told her I know I was going to be incarcerated for a long period of time, don't know how long. So I told her, say, you know what, I go and find somebody, but make sure that he's taking care of you and the kids. That was my word to her. And by me doing that, it helps to clear my mind, that I don't have to worry about if I hear anything, because even I'm glad that God allowed me, set me up to do that, because incarcerated, when I was there, I hearing guys on the phone crying, out there, girls on the phone, oh, please don't do it to me. But
Yeah.
God was so amazing when I do
Yeah.
all of that stuff. So, what, came out and tried to make it back up with her, wouldn't work.
Yeah.
So the guy that she was actually seeing, I was sleeping there at the house once. One night I slept there at the house, and this guy had a key for the apartment. I didn't know that. So I was in the room, me and her in the room sleeping, and then he was knocking on the door, and he didn't have the key then, but then he went away, get the key, and come back. And so he came in and he saw me in the room, and we started to make up a lot of noise. And who is that in there? So she told him, well, it's the kid's father. So what is he doing here? You need to leave. You need to get out of here. And she started to make a whole bag of noise in the place. So I get out and I said, you know what? I know you and her have a relationship, but this is my place.
Mm-hmm.
This is my place. So I'm going to ask.
Oh, you froze. You froze just now. Yeah, you froze just now, but you're good now. Okay, so tell us about the successful part now. The part where your life now, um, you're free, everything has changed, you're a changed man and all of that. Tell us about the good part now. What you're
Okay, so
doing now,
so from there and her, when I decided that nothing's going to work, so I separated from her, and I actually went to live with my mother, stay with my mother for a good while. This time I just started to go to church and spend more time, reading the word and all of that stuff. Then I started to work with uh, an organization that called Full Gospel, and they go in every weekend. They go into the institution. So I start to go in with them as a volunteer. Then I get a part-time job. I was doing carpet cleaning with my mentor, and by doing that, I start my own carpet cleaning company, my own
awesome.
cleaning company, and then I end up met a lady, married her. We didn't have any kids, but then she had a couple teenager from her past, and I then things wasn't working out, and so decided to
Part, wait.
sever that relationship. And
Yeah.
so I did that, and I said, you know what, God, I don't want to get married ever again, because I think this
Ah,
is a waste.
that's
A
what
waste
you say. God knows what he wants for you to
this
do.
is a waste of my time. So
Not
I
your
know
will, but
I'm
his will.
stuck.
Whatever. Well, you never know.
So I started to go to church on a regular basis, and then I got reconnected back with Anne, because when I just came to Canada, me and Anne came here the same year. That's Anne Higgins. So we
Oh.
came here the same year to Canada. We're going to the same school, and
Oh.
we start to go to party
Yeah.
together. Me,
Oh, so you've
her.
known Anne for a very long time. That's
Oh
amazing.
yeah, from the
Yeah.
first day she came to Canada, we know each other.
Wow.
So we started to go to party together and stuff like that. And she's the one that she got saved before I did. So when I get out, I connected back with her, and then she invited me to it was a conference that was going on at Light and Life. I think
Mhm.
that was the first time when Bobby Summons came.
Oh, okay.
So when
Yeah.
I came there, and I was just, enjoying the service. I was working nights at the time, and so after the service, I left and I went to work, and then I started to come back to Light and Life. Met Pastor Taylor, and was a month I came there on a Monday night prayer meeting, and I had a couple meeting with him and let him know who I was and all of that stuff, and so I told him I just wanted to serve God. That's all I came to do, just
And
to
you
serve.
got stuck at Light and Life.
Then I got stuck.
God is good.
Yeah, so I
It's
was just there for quite a few while. I think I was there for about 3 years
mhm.
before I actually decide or even say that I want to talk to any female. By
Yeah.
this time there was this single man in the church, because I never used to
We're
talk
not
to
gonna go there right now. We're gonna save it for part two. But I really want to say, Brother Kirk, we will do a part two because yeah, it's not finished. I really, 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 I you don't understand. I love your story. It's amazing. Audience, I really, You need to watch this over and over because this is a testimony of what the Lord can do. And so I'm so grateful that you could be here. I'm grateful to my audience for watching us and for really listening to this awesome story. And I just want to say, if you have a story, this is the place to be on to tell your story, no matter what it is. You can email us at daretotellall@gmail.com. That's daretotellall@gmail.com. And feel free to have a conversation with us. So, Brother Kirk, thanks again. And we will do part two, of course, because I know there's lots more. Okay. And I do
Okay.
appreciate you coming on. And to all my viewers, to all the audience, thank you so much for joining us, for watching us. And please share, subscribe, and like on our YouTube channel, which is Dare to Tell. Thank you so much. And thanks again, Brother Kirk. We will continue this conversation. All right.
Yeah, thank you for having me. It was a
Yes.
pleasure.
All right. Thank you. Be blessed.
All right, thanks.